Hello students. So as promised, we are back here with the poem Daffodils, or I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, written by one of the most romantic poets belonging to the Romantic Age, of course, William Wordsworth. So let's jump right into the poem without much further ado. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So, what do we encounter here? We encounter a poet who is comparing himself to be as lonely as a lonely cloud that floats and skids in the sky, right? And what happens next? He's seeing as if he's hovering over the hills and vales, and he's noticing what nature has to offer, right? And what is he noticing? He's noticing a crowd, as if a crowd of living creatures, a host of golden daffodils. So, a collective or collection of flowers of golden colored daffodils that have been beaming in the valley in numbers, right? Beside the lake, beneath the tree. So here the lake is important. What is the lake here? Is the lake of Ullswater, right? Beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the wind. So we have heard the word flutter with the word flag that flutters in the wind, right? So here, as if in the same motion, the daffodils are also fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Breeze is kind of enhancing the motion or the energy of the daffodils to dance and sway their heads. Let's move on to the second stanza then, if the first stanza is completely done with. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. So what is it in the second stanza? The continuation of what the poet is seeing while hovering above the vale or the lake or the bay of Ullswater. Continuous as the stars that shine. So it's kind of like a shimmering or light of the stars that is offered to us at the nightscape, right? And twinkle on the Milky Way, right? As the stars twinkle on the Milky Way in numerous numbers. So the daffodils are also kind of like twinkling or reflecting the sun in the same motion as the stars reflect. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay, as if the line of the daffodils is a never-ending one, like the stars lined in the Milky Way, right? We never know which is the ending and which is the starting point of the Milky Way. And in the same way, the poet is confused while staring at the margin of the bay, that which is the starting point and which is the ending point of this host of daffodils that are tossing their heads in their sprightly dance. What is the sprightly dance here? The energy, the agility that has been forced by the wind by the margin of the bay, right? 10,000 saw at a glance. So, at a glance, he's kind of like conjuring up 10,000 or more or less. We don't know, but it's an approximately 10,000 he's seeing at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance, right? He's seeing them in a motion, in a youthful, agile motion. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet couldn't but be gay in such jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So here's the important thing, right? The wealth that he had got, or the essence that the poet had captured by the margin of the bay while watching the host of daffodils all gathered. He didn't understand the wealth or the value of the sight at the first glance, right? So what's he saying? What did he see? The waves beside them danced. So the waves of the bay, right, that danced or that were also in the motion like the daffodils, but they couldn't compare, they couldn't match the daffodils' sprightly dance, and they were outdid by the daffodils' energy and agility. A poet couldn't but be gay in such jocund company. So the word jocund means happy, such joyous company. So a poet couldn't be called a poet if he is not happy by seeing the sight of so many daffodils tossing their way in this such a youthful, agile, and energetic motion or mirthful dance, right? I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So the poet couldn't realize the wealth or the treasure that has been bestowed on him by the Mother Nature, or here in the form of the golden daffodils. He couldn't understand what wealth that show, the picturesque, beautiful scenery of the golden daffodils swaying their head and tossing their head up and down in the sideways or whatever it is. He couldn't understand the value of the treasure that he had been seeing or observing, right? And when does he understand the value? Let's see. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. For oft is the short form or the abbreviation of the word often. When on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, when he thinks about nothing, he becomes kind of like a saint. He has grown non-attached to everything that his mundane world has given him. He's vacant. He's in a pensive mood. He's in a melancholy mood. He doesn't want to think about things, but it's kind of like a sad feeling had taken over his mind and heart, and he's lying just vacant. It's kind of like a patient etherized upon the table. It's kind of like taking the words of T.S. Eliot. They flash upon that inward eye. So what is that inward eye here? We'll come to that. Which is the bliss of solitude. So he's lying in solitude, he's alone, and who is giving him company in this solitude? The flashback, that host of golden daffodils that he had seen by the margin of the bay in this sprightly motion, in this sprightly dance, right? That very flashback is becoming his company in his solitude, and which is the bliss of solitude, right? And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils, as if the poet has a sudden change in his mood from pain to pleasure, just at the very recollection of the thought, right? So here comes the play of imagination, the inward eye, that is the all-encompassing inward eye that plays a significant role, right? That brings in the flashbacks of the treasure that he had first observed along the margin of the bay, but couldn't understand what that treasure, what that scenery had bestowed on him. But now, when he's lying vacant or in a pensive mood, that sudden flashback is shifting his mood suddenly from pain to pleasure, right? So for the advanced student, you can take a note that according to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, another great romantic, a contemporary of, or rather a friend of William Wordsworth, had said about imagination, there are two faculties of imagination. This is the primary imagination and secondary imagination. The primary imagination is what we observe and what we take into our mind or take into our account in our everyday life. But the secondary imagination is what very few people have, or rather the intellectual or the poets have, or any artists have. That is a willingness, a conscious effort to take particular things of the primary imagination and give life to that figments of imagination, as William Wordsworth did, as he's conscious when he's writing the poem, but he's not conscious when he's lying vacant in a pensive mood on the couch. That's his subconscious playing a part within his imagination, right? So this is all about the daffodils, his imagination, his sudden shift from pain to pleasure is all occurring here due to this sudden recollection, or rather emotions recollected in tranquility by the poet's word. Thank you.